There is a river so large that its discharge alone accounts for 1/5 of all the fresh water that flows into every ocean on Earth. Stand 100 miles out into the Atlantic, off the coast of Brazil, and you can still lean over the side of a boat and drink the water. It is, by every measure that matters, the mightiest river on the planet, and it is also one of the most dangerous places a human being can choose to enter. The Amazon River carries more water than the next 7 largest rivers on Earth combined. In the wet season, it can swell to nearly 30 miles wide. If you tried to walk across it at its widest point, it would take you the better part of a day. There are no bridges across its entire length, not because engineers couldn't build one, but because for most of its 6,000-kilometer journey, there is simply nothing on either bank to connect. No roads, no towns, just forest and water and the thin, fragile line of human settlements that have learned over centuries exactly how much respect this river demands. Most people's fear of the Amazon River comes from movies. Piranhas stripping a cow to bone in 90 seconds. A tiny fish swimming up a stream of urine to lodge itself somewhere unspeakable. Electric eels lighting up the water like a horror film. Some of this fear is earned, much of it is myth, and the real dangers of this river, the ones that actually take lives year after year with a quiet and unglamorous consistency, are very rarely the ones that make it into the movies at all. Today, we're going to separate the legend from the lethal, and by the end, you may find that the truth is more unsettling than the fiction. Let's start with the fish that built an entire reputation on a single dramatic scene. Theodore Roosevelt visited a village on the Amazon in 1913 and was shown a feeding frenzy that local fishermen had deliberately staged, starving a school of piranhas, then driving a sick, bleeding cow into the water in front of him. He wrote about it with the breathless horror of a man who had genuinely never seen anything like it. That account, more than any other single source, is responsible for a century of piranha mythology. Here is the truth. Of the roughly 20 species of piranha in the Amazon, the overwhelming majority are scavengers. They primarily eat insects, plant matter, and other fish that are already dead or dying. A healthy person swimming in a normal, well-stocked stretch of the Amazon is in very little danger from piranhas. Locals swim with them, tourists fish for them, and eat them. The documented fatal attacks that do exist almost always share the same circumstances. A person who is already bleeding in shallow water that has been reduced by drought, where the fish are concentrated and genuinely starving. The danger isn't the piranha. The danger is entering its world under exactly the wrong conditions. It is a predator of opportunity, not of malice, and most of the time, the opportunity simply doesn't arise. The electric eel is a different matter, and its danger is real, even if it's also frequently misunderstood. It isn't actually an eel at all, it's a type of knife fish, but it can generate up to 600 volts through specialized cells running the length of its body. That's roughly 5 times the voltage of a household electrical socket. A single shock typically won't kill a healthy adult, but multiple shocks delivered in rapid succession by a threatened or hunting eel can cause respiratory failure or heart failure. And here is the detail that should genuinely concern you. The eel doesn't need to touch you to deliver that shock. It can discharge through the water itself. The actual cause of death in most electric eel incidents isn't electrocution. It's drowning. A person stunned into momentary paralysis in water with no one immediately able to pull them out. A creature that can disable you without ever making contact is, in a very real sense, more dangerous than one that has to bite. Then there is the fish that has generated more anxious folklore than perhaps any other animal on the entire river. The candiru, a small, almost translucent parasitic catfish, rarely longer than a couple of inches, with a body built for one purpose: swimming into the gill chambers of larger fish and feeding on their blood. Its spines point backward, which means once it's lodged itself somewhere, it can be agonizingly difficult to remove. For nearly 2 centuries, travelers' tales have insisted that the Candiru is drawn to human urine, that it can detect a person urinating in the river and swim directly up the stream of liquid to lodge itself in the human body. It is one of the most viscerally terrifying pieces of Amazon folklore that exists. It is also, according to the scientists who have actually studied this fish, almost certainly false. Researchers in the early 2000s demonstrated that Candiru hunt primarily by sight, not by chemical attraction to urine or ammonia. The original written account that started the legend, published by a German biologist in 1829, wasn't based on his own observation at all. It was based on stories he'd been told, secondhand folklore, repeated by indigenous communities who themselves had likely never witnessed it directly, then written down with the breathless certainty of a man eager for a good story. There is exactly one well-documented case in the medical literature of a Candiru entering a human body, and even that case is mired in disputed details. So why do entire indigenous communities, to this day, still take precautions against it? Because rare is not the same as impossible. Local guides on the river will tell you, with complete sincerity, about a boy on a crowded beach who felt a sudden, sharp pain and had to be rushed to hospital, where doctors use an anesthetic enema to coax the fish back out. Whether that particular story is myth, exaggeration, or genuine medical record passed down through oral history, the caution it has produced is real, practical, and rooted in something true about how this fish behaves. The legend may be inflated. The respect it has earned is not unreasonable. If you want to talk about animals in the Amazon that genuinely, statistically kill people, the conversation has to turn to the black caiman. This is not a Hollywood exaggeration. This is simple math. The black caiman is the apex predator of the Amazon's waters, a crocodilian that can grow over 20 feet long, with a skull heavier and more powerful than its African cousin, the Nile crocodile. According to the Worldwide Crocodilian Attack Database, there have been 93 officially documented black caiman attacks across the Amazon basin. 30 of them were fatal. Many more left survivors maimed. In 2010, a biologist named Daisy Nichimura was cleaning a fish on the deck of her own houseboat when a caiman that had apparently been living beneath the boat for 8 months, patient, watching, waiting for exactly this moment, lunged out of the water and took one of her legs. She survived. Many people in similarly remote stretches of the river do not have access to the kind of emergency medical care that made her survival possible. The black caiman doesn't need a dramatic setup. It needs proximity, opportunity, and time. And on a river this size with banks this remote, it has an abundance of all three. But here is the uncomfortable truth that almost never makes it into the documentaries about Amazonian wildlife. None of these creatures, not the piranha, not the eel, not the candiru, not even the caiman, are the leading cause of death on the Amazon River. The leading cause of death on the Amazon River is the river itself. It is estimated that the Amazon claims roughly 1,000 human lives every single year, and the overwhelming majority of those deaths have nothing to do with teeth or venom or electricity. They are drownings. Simple, devastating, statistically unglamorous drownings. To understand why, you have to understand what this river actually is. It isn't a single predictable channel. It is a vast, shifting, living system. Over 1,100 tributaries, currents that can travel at more than 6 kilometers an hour during the height of the wet season, and a riverbed that changes shape constantly as millions of tons of sediment are carried downstream every single year. Beneath that famously murky brown surface, water made opaque by the very sediment that makes the Amazon basin so fertile. You cannot see more than a few inches down. You cannot see a sudden drop-off. You cannot see a submerged log. You cannot see the current pulling sideways beneath what looks, from above, like calm water. And then there are the whirlpools. At the confluence points where major tributaries crash together, the meeting of the Marañón and the Ucayali, for instance, two of the great river systems that combine to form what most of the world recognizes as the Amazon proper. The river can generate vortexes powerful enough to pull a fully grown adult under and never release them. Local guides describe whirlpools that appear with almost no warning, swallow boats whole, and vanish again as if they had never existed. In one widely reported incident, a tour operator allowed a group of 12 tourists, all wearing life jackets, to jump into the water at exactly this kind of confluence point. 11 came back up. A young British tourist did not. His body was recovered 20 miles downstream the following day, caught in a fisherman's net. A life jacket assumes you are fighting against gravity. It cannot help you against a current that is actively pulling you downward and sideways at the same time. This is the detail that should genuinely change how you think about this river. It isn't that the Amazon is full of monsters waiting to attack you. Most of its creatures, most of the time, want nothing to do with you at all. It's that the river itself, the sheer physical scale of it, the unpredictability of its currents, the complete invisibility of what lies beneath its surface is more dangerous than almost anything that swims in it. You don't need a predator to die in the Amazon. You just need to misjudge the water. And the dangers don't end at the waterline. Disease moves through this river system the way it moves through any place where millions of people depend on the same water for drinking, bathing, cooking, and waste disposal, often without reliable sanitation infrastructure. Waterborne illness is a constant, quiet threat throughout the basin, a risk multiplied by remoteness, because a case of severe dehydration or infection that would be a routine hospital visit in a city can become a genuine emergency when the nearest clinic is a full day's boat journey away. In recent decades, an entirely new category of danger has been added to this river, and it has nothing to do with biology at all. Illegal gold mining operations have spread along many of the Amazon's tributaries using mercury to separate gold from sediment, a process that leaches the mercury directly into the water system. Studies conducted across all 6 Brazilian Amazonian states have found fish with mercury contamination levels above the safety threshold set by the World Health Organization. Mercury is a neurotoxin. It accumulates in the food chain, concentrating most heavily in the largest, oldest predatory fish, the very fish that local communities and indigenous peoples have relied on as a primary food source for generations. The river that has fed people for thousands of years is, in some of its most remote and least regulated stretches, quietly poisoning them. And then there is a danger that has nothing to do with the water, the wildlife, or the chemistry, and everything to do with human violence. The Brazilian Amazon recorded more than 8,000 violent deaths in a single recent year, a rate of lethal violence that surpasses the rest of the country by more than 50%. Illegal logging, fish trafficking, and illicit gold extraction have become entangled with organized crime, and the river itself, its remoteness, its size, its near total absence of policing in vast stretches of its basin has become an asset to the people committing these crimes rather than a deterrent. In one of the most internationally reported cases, Indigenous rights expert Bruno Pereira and British journalist Dom Phillips were murdered in the remote Javari Valley in 2022, in a region so vast and so underpoliced that some of its territories are larger than entire European countries. The river didn't kill them, but the isolation that the river creates, the same isolation that has, for centuries, protected uncontacted peoples and unique ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth, is the same isolation that allows violence to occur with almost no oversight at all. So where does that leave us? If you strip away the Hollywood mythology, the piranhas that don't actually swarm, the parasitic fish that almost certainly isn't swimming up anyone's urine stream, the eels that are dangerous but rarely lethal on their own, what you are left with is a more sobering picture, not a less serious one. The Amazon River is dangerous not because it is full of monsters. It is dangerous because it is enormous, unpredictable, poorly understood even by the scientists who study it, and located in some of the most remote, least governed territory left on the planet. The Black Caiman is a real and serious threat in the waters it inhabits. But the water itself, its currents, its whirlpools, its invisible depths, kills far more people than every dangerous creature in this river combined. There is something almost humbling in that fact. We are drawn, as a species, to fear the dramatic, the bite, the sting, the shock, the thing with teeth. But the Amazon River's true danger lies in something much less cinematic: scale. A body of water so vast that it behaves less like a river and more like a weather system, one with its own currents, its own unpredictable temperament, its own complete indifference to whether you can swim or not. None of this means the Amazon is a place to be avoided entirely. Millions of people live alongside this river, depend on it, and have developed over countless generations a working knowledge of how to coexist with it safely. Local guides who have spent their entire lives on this water can read its currents the way a sailor reads the wind. They know which beaches are safe and which conceal a sudden drop-off. They know what a whirlpool looks like in the seconds before it forms. That knowledge, practical, hard-earned, passed down rather than written in a textbook, is the actual difference between safety and tragedy on a river this size. The Amazon does not hate you. It does not hunt you. It simply does not notice you at all. It carries 20% of the world's fresh water to the ocean, whether you respect it or not, whether you understand its currents or not, whether you believe the myths or dismiss them. It has been doing this for millions of years, long before the first human stood on its banks, and it will keep doing it long after the last one is gone. The creatures in its water are not the threat. The threat is forgetting, even for a moment, just how large and how indifferent the thing beneath your boat actually is.